best healthcare systems in India. And medical tourism is one of the most sought after phenomena where Western world is looking on India for the best healthcare support. So we have moved from a poor healthcare support system to a leading supplier of medicines. Several generic drugs are being manufactured here, and we are no lesser in the manufacture of medicines. Yet another very important success story to the cap of the entire country is this vaccine Maitri. We all know that we were one of the best, largest producers of the corona vaccine, and we have exported this to, not just exported, given it free of cost to the neighboring countries. To several countries we have given it. So this vaccine Maitri shows that India is self-reliant. Not just vaccines, we were also forerunners in the production of COVID essential products. Several products like COVID healthcare safety products and machineries were exported from our country. Apart from all that, we are not lesser in education as well. We are marching ahead gloriously in providing quality and sustaining education, rich in values, rich in culture, rich in ethos to our stakeholders. We have moved away from educating the elites. Few decades ago, when India attained independence in 1947, education was a dream to several people. Only people who could afford, only people who could pay money, or the elites were getting education. But today, you should understand that we are reaching out even to the last mile. During the corona pandemic, the government has taken a lot of initiatives to bring education to regions even where the internet connectivity was very poor. They have brought out a continuous learning process through several mechanisms. So we have moved not just providing educations only to the elite people, but also to the last person who lives in the remotest part of the country. So this is our success story. And I should now tell you that since we are we are just in the eve of celebrating our Independence Day, I should tell you that the enablers, the incubators, and the accelerators started at the pre-Swadeshi movement itself. So I should say that during the pre-Swadeshi movement and the Swadeshi movement, the concept of Swadeshi entrepreneurship, nothing but the Atmanirbhar Bharat, started emerging even at the pre-Swadeshi period. So I would say the first enabling ecosystem at the regional level, at the national level, was the Swadeshi entrepreneurship, which is nothing but the economic Swadeshi entrepreneurship movement, which started in the 19th century. And in 1849, the first person to advocate this economic Swadeshi was Sri Gopal Hari Deshmukh. So he fueled the concept of Swadeshi economics and bringing out Swadeshi entrepreneurship, producing, marketing Indian products, and urging the customers to buy Indian products. This idea, which was propagated by Sri Gopal Hari Deshmukh in 1849, was actually taken forth as a call to action by the Arya Samajis of Punjab. The Arya Samajis of the Punjab, they were the first people to create an enabling ecosystem wherein they created the first national bank, which actually fueled entrepreneurial ventures in the whole of the country. So in 1894, when Sri Gopal Hari Deshmukh flouted the idea of Swadeshi entrepreneurship, around the same time, three important people, the pictures, you can see them here, Lala Lajpat Rai, Lala Hari Krishan Lal, and Sir Dayal Singh Majita, they founded the first Indian-owned bank, the Punjab National Bank. And this Punjab National Bank provided a lot of subsidies, provided a lot of financial aids to ventures who can bring back Swadeshi entrepreneurship. And the first insurance company, along with the Arya Samajist And the Punjab National Bank was the Bharat Insurance, which was the first insurance company, Indian owned insurance company at that period of time. And when these two systems were in place, several Swadeshi flour mills, spinning and weaving mills, cotton press mills, oil press, timber works, ice factories, matchmaking factories, soap factories, brick kilns, sawmills, etc., they came into existence. So I would say the first establishments or the first entrepreneurial establishments were these companies which were founded in the pre-Swadeshi movement. You all know the Godrej company, which is very famous even today. In 1897, Burjiroji Sorbji Godrej. So they founded this Godrej Boys company in 1897, and 2 3 days ago was the anniversary of the first the person who was behind establishing the first Indian pharmaceutical company, the Bengal Chemicals, by Acharya Prafulla Chaudhary Roy. His picture is there on the top here. So he was the first person to establish an Indian pharmaceutical company. Today, pharmaceutical companies have grown leaps and bounds, and today we are one of the best medical suppliers, drug suppliers to the whole world. Again, in 1867, Nabagopal Mitra, he was the first person to create an exhibition or a fair to promote Swadeshi products in Bengal. So this was the first time a clarion call for self-reliance was made, and this first clarion call was nothing but Atma Shakti, realizing the Shakti, realizing the potentials that we have within us to create Swadeshi products and to manufacture and produce Swadeshi products. The Roy family of Bhagyakul, they were the first people to trade rice and jute. Similarly, the Tagore family in 1884, Jyotirindranath Tagore, he was the first person to commence the inland river steam navigation service. So you understand, right from making a cotton mill to machineries and also to navigation system, things started at the pre-Swadeshi movement. Later on, the Swadeshi enterprises took spirit and they established several ventures during the Swadeshi period. For example, Rabindranath Tagore established the first Swadeshi Bhandar, which is nothing but an indigenous store. Today, you go to the market, you can see several such indigenous stores marketing Indian products. So in 1897, the first indigenous store was the Swadeshi Bhandar, established by Rabindranath Tagore. Similarly, Jogesh Chandra Chaudhary established in the Indian store in 1901. Similarly, Lakshmi Bhandar in 1903 by Sarala Devi, and the first national insurance company was established in 1906. With profile of several Swadeshi ventures and from the contribution from the National Insurance Company and RA Samajist and several such like-minded people of Bengal, the Banga Lakshmi Cotton Mill was established in 1907. So during this period, there was a movement to boycott English cloths, that is Manchester cloths, and this between the period 1904 to 1910 was able to establish roughly about 39 cotton mills in Bombay and Ahmedabad and also in the regions of Coimbatore. So this saw a propulsion in development of indigenous cloths, particularly the khadar based and the cotton based indigenous cloths. Similarly, in 1903, the Alembic, the first chemical company, was established by Tribhuvandas Kalyandas Gajjar. He was a chemical scientist in collusion with a famous philanthropist B.D. Amin in 1903. They established this Alembic Pharmaceuticals, the first chemical company of India. Similarly, the Kirloskar business, which you all know is very famous even today, was established in 1910 for manufacturing small mechanical devices by Lakshman Rao Kirloskar. In 1904 and 1905, the most famous Tata Steel was established. In 1906, in the Madras presidency in Thoothukudi, V.O. Chidambaram Pillai, he established the Steam Navigation Company and the United India Insurance Company. At that point of time, several banks started emerging, and these banks started supporting the innovation and incubation system in the Swadeshi period itself. Few banks which were started in that time, which were supporting or which were functioning like enablers, were the Indian Bank, which was started with the Madras Presidency in 1907 by V. Krishnaswamy Iyer. In 1907, again, the Corporation of Udupi, today this bank is called Corporation Bank, and the Canara Hindu Permanent Fund, called as the Canara Bank, was established. In 1910 or 1911, in Bombay, the Central Bank of India was established. In 1907, in Maharashtra, the Bank of India was again established. Maharaj Sayoji Rao too, he established in 1908 the Bank of Baroda. So these banks initially served as enablers. Again, in the pre-independence establishments, Walchand Hirachand between 1882 to 19, there's a small mistake, it's 1953, 1882 to 1953. Hindustan Shipyard in Visakhapatnam, the first modern shipping yard company, was established. Premier Automobiles in Bombay, which was the first car factory, indigenous car factory, was established. The first Indian aircraft factory, the Hindustan Aircraft, was established in Bengaluru. This later became a prelude for establishing the Hindustan Aeronautical Limited in Bengaluru again in 1935. Just a few years before independence, Cipla, another very famous pharmaceutical company, was founded by Khwaja Abdul Hamid. So the pre-Swadeshi movement and the Swadeshi movement gave a lot of inputs to the development of startup ecosystem in the country. Now, to understand briefly what a startup is, we all have been speaking about startups. We all know what startups are, what ventures are, but then what exactly a startup means. According to the today's definition of OECD in 2013, the word startup means any registered or an incorporated entity in India which does not prior to 5 years of existence and with an annual turnover not exceeding 25 crore in the preceding financial year, working towards innovation, development of new processes or products, deployment or commercialization of new products, process or services driven by technology or intellectual property is called as a startup. So this basic definition of what startup is, we have to understand. What is an enabler? An enabler is someone who can enable. A teacher, is a facilitator. A teacher can facilitate acquiring knowledge. Similarly, an enabler is a person or a company or somebody who can, or through the activities of this company or through the activities of this body, startups can be promoted, which means you provide an ecosystem for growth. See, for growing of plants, you have a greenhouse because the atmosphere has to be conducive for the growth. Nurseries are there for propagating plants. So you require a conducive atmosphere for growing plants. Similarly, for a startup to emerge or for a company to emerge, you need certain support systems. So any person, whether it is a government or a non-government agency, who can support or who can promote the growth of startups by providing infrastructure, by providing financial aid, by providing several accessory support, is called as an enabler. Now, enablers can be classified into 5 categories. They can be investors. Investors are people who have interest in something. You can be enabler can be a mentor. Enabler can be an incubator. Enabler can be an accelerator, or there are several government as well as non-governmental bodies which are private sector funded bodies. which can also function as enablers. For example, certain companies have CSR fund. So these CSR funds can be utilized by the company for supporting the development of a startup. So such government and non-governmental bodies can also function as an enabler. So these are the five major categories of enabler. Now, investors, again, when you take, there are two types of investors: angel investors as well as venture capitalists. So venture capitalists and angel investors and also institutional investors are people who can invest money in a particular product or a process, so that they will now promote the development of this particular startup and establish the startup. Mentor Mentors can be any experienced person who would like to impart their knowledge on the startup and guide the startup so that the startup will become successful and get established and sustenance will be there. See, the problem here is several startups which emerge, they have a lag period of at least 2 years. Now, during this 2 years of lag period, if they don't have a proper BMC, if they don't have a proper business plan, the startups may fail at the beginning of the third year. So, mentors are really required for a startup to see that the startup established beyond the second year lag and gets established in the years that come further. Similarly, you have incubators. Incubators are organizations like, you have Atal incubation centers. Several incubators are there. So these incubators, they are organizations that provide support to entrepreneurs and early stage startups with several resources like infrastructure, makerspace, labs for them to try and test their products, etc., so that a simple idea can become a prototype, and this prototype can now become a sustaining business. So that's the role of the incubator. And you have accelerators. You know what acceleration is? These are accelerators help in catalyzing the growth of an existing startup so that may get ready for an IPO. So that is the role difference between accelerator and incubator. Then, as I told you before, governmental and non-governmental bodies, organizations which can procure goods or services from startup and who wish to host a challenge on the portal are governmental and non-governmental bodies. So here, when we speak about incubators, startups, and etc., the role of public policy is very, very important. Now, there is always a difference in the kind of startups that emerge, particularly for science and technology startups. S&T startups are very, very, very risky. I would not say risky. They require lot of commitment, and they require a lot of proper planning for them to establish. So public policy is the key in strengthening the innovation system, and particularly only when you have a proper public policy, the risk of these S&T startups getting failed can be mitigated. Now, at several points of time, even in our own experience, we have seen that several incubators, like even when I developed a product some 5 years ago, I did not have the business attitude. I did not know how to market. I did not know how to project the product in the market. So that this is the actual problem with several innovators. So several innovators, particularly people who try their hands on science and technology startups, they will definitely not have the entrepreneurial skills or the business. They will not be able to produce, or they will not be able to map a proper business plan. So only when they have a proper business plan, the idea can be converted into an innovative product, and this can be promoted through an effective business plan. So there should be a policy in place, and this policy should be a building innovation system which allows the development of new products or technologies and integrating these technologies and products into the markets. And also, they will have to provide several opportunities for financing so that there's a smooth knowledge flowing between different actors. So different actors means the innovator, the incubator, and also the market which is outside. So since every product, every process is unique in its own aspect, a one size fitting for all policy may not be really suitable. So if you take an IT so that at least minimum 2 years or 3 years of testing and trial and error is required for a startup to establish. So this incubation period or this period for testing varies between different systems. So the public policy that is developed for honing the startups should also be very flexible, should also be not one for all products and all processes. So direct government and indirect government driven initiatives are there today. When you look into these startups, several universities and even today through the Institution Innovation Council, startups are being promoted even at arts and science colleges. So university based startups like and technology based economic development like incubators, science parks, accelerators are now being developed in a larger scale. And SBIR, nothing but Small Business Innovation Research, is offering several formal programs for direct financing and also for grants for establishment and successful venturing into trials. Similarly, there are indirect government driven activities which underlie successful startups, like including capacity building programs, human resource development programs through universities, technology transfer offices, and also provision for entrepreneurial ventures and training in the schools and in the colleges itself. So this is also now becoming an enabling ecosystem. Now, incubation itself is a policy. Now, incubation means it's an organized entity that can support conversion of an individual idea or a small idea into an early stage enterprise, into an early stage innovation, which can enter the market, and it will provide a conducive ecosystem under which the startups can operate. So this is called incubation, and this incubation will act as an intermediaries that can link the startups with several other systems. For example, when you go to an incubator, you take the Startup India portal. So in the Startup India portal, a person who is aspiring to become an entrepreneur and aspiring to become a new startup has got lot of training modules. There are several courses which are run under the Startup India movement. So one can go to such system and you can build your capacities by doing these courses. Similarly, these incubators will also help in tying up the startups to academic persons like scientists who are working in universities and research institutions, and also government officials, plus policymakers and investors. So in a nutshell, the incubation facility that you will have will be a consortia or will be a combination of several factors, like it can provide you excellent infrastructures, it can provide you working space, co-working space, mentoring, training, small seed money can be given by the incubators, and also these incubators can connect you to certain established entrepreneurial ventures. They can connect you to these startups, they can connect you to certain established CEOs, CTOs, and COOs, so that you will have an opportunity to seed your idea and develop your idea into a viable product which can enter into the market. Now, briefly speaking, the differences between and the characteristics of what an incubator, accelerator, and hybrids means. Hybrid is actually a combination of both incubator and accelerator. Incubators predominantly take about 1 to 5 years of incubation is required for you to emerge. Accelerators, that's the basic difference I told you. Once a startup is ready for really take off into the market, accelerators are the best ones, because in 3 to 6 months of time, you can establish yourself. In incubators, you don't have cohorts, whereas accelerators have cohorts. In hybrids also, there are no cohorts. Incubators work on a non-profit movement, non-profit business model. Whereas accelerators, investment will be there and it can be a non-profit as well. In hybrids, investment and it can be non-profit also. So the selection of the venture stage will be early or late stage for an incubator, early stage for accelerator, and for hybrid also it will be early stage. Similarly, the mentorship will be very minimal in incubators. Accelerators, you will have a very what to say, intense mentoringship will be there. And in hybrid model, you'll have expert support and also moderate mentoring. Location, incubators will be on site. Accelerators, even virtual incubation is possible. And in hybrid model also, both on site and off site or virtual incubations are possible. So having said all that, the most important barriers for Indian science and technology innovators is the lack of capacity to innovate in academia. And at least by large, this gray area is taken care by the Institution Innovation Council, where the council is promoting lot of capacity building to the young graduates so that they can emerge as a startup by the time they complete their 3 years or 4 years of course in an arts and science or engineering college. Low support for failure. Once the startup fails, the support system is very less. So that also is being addressed to a greater extent by the incubators. And you have underdeveloped markets and bureaucratic and regulatory barriers. So this is also being addressed in a large scale by the systems which are in place today. So today, the landscape of science and technology based innovation in India, when you see here today, Niti Aayog from 2009, from 1985, the NSTEDB was established, that is the which promotes the entrepreneurship development systems. In 1985 to 2014, 140 incubators were established in 3 decades of time through the support of NSTEDB. And between 2014 and 2016, through the Startup India movement, Atal Innovation Mission, National Entrepreneurship Policy, and Make in India, Made in India movement, several startups have emerged in a larger way. And you know that the TBI alone, between the period of 2009 and 2014, 450 patents and copyrights were actually realized. And that is one of the biggest outcomes of this innovation ecosystem in our country. And when you know, in 2015 alone, 800 plus startups were supported by Niti Aayog, 2000 plus startups were incubated in TBI, and 1170 startups are incubated in TBI in 2019. And out of that, you see 950 plus were graduated in 2014, and 500 are supported even annually by Niti Aayog since 2015. So NSDEDB was one of the most important ones to establish enabling ecosystem. And between the period of 1980 and 84, the first software testing entrepreneurial park steps were established in the 6th 5-year plan. In the 7th 5-year plan, DBT, that is Department of Biotechnology, they set up 3 pilot incubators with the United Nations, with the UN Fund for Science and Technology. Between 1992 and 1996, in the 8th 5-year plan, several concepts of self-employment, S&T students, personnel, employment for science and technology students and personnels, entrepreneurship training to go for biotech, commercialization of indigenous products were all taken into a large started and interested in women technology parks, etc., were all promoted in the 10th 5-year plan. And most of that was funded by the ISBA Incubator Association and the Technology Development Board Seed Fund. Between the 12th 5-year plan and between the 12th 5-year plan, you should see that, sorry, it is skipped. Yeah, in the 11th 5-year and the 12th 5-year plan, the several technology and knowledge-based entrepreneurship emerged because of academia industry linkages, venture capitalist funding, tax incentives which were provided, and setting up of public private partnership models, incubators, parks, etc. This was promoted by the NSTEDB, and the turnover less than 50 lakhs through the TIDE scheme for electronics and ICT enabled startups as well. In the 12th 5-year plan, the SME exchange BIRAC, which is a Section 25 company of the Department of Biotechnology, was established. The Ministry of that is MSME incubators were established, and they were qualified for CSR fund. Science Technology Innovation Policy was rolled out. Atal Innovation Mission was established. Startup India Action Plan, Make in India Action Plan, Made in India Action Plan, all these were established at this, the 12th 5-year plan between 2012 to 2016. So this period between 2014 to 16 saw several policies, several public policies getting in place, and several systems getting established. Now, I'll quickly go through some of the government departments. The first one is the Department of Science and Technology. This is the most prominent one, which comes under the NSTEDB. And today, in 3 decades, they have supported 86 TBIs and steps in 3 decades. So the main process is they can evaluate applications from hosts on demand basis, and they provide financial support for the first 5 years. And after the 5 years, the incubators have to manage the incubation. And most of these incubators, they are able to manage because they are able to levy small charges for the infrastructure utilization and also for the services that they are rendering to the startups and also the entrepreneurs. So in addition, the DST is also providing fund through local, through the incubators, through the Technology Development Board, and also the Seed Funding Scheme, SSS, which provides financial assistance through equity sharing, sharing of royalties, through debt sharing, and also to several other mechanisms through to the technology-focused startups which are physically located in the region. The next important agency is the Department of Biotechnology. One of the most important one is the BIRAC, that is a Biotechnology Research Assistance Council, which is a Section 8, Section 25 company, a public sector enterprise established by the DBT for promoting biotechnology startups and converting ideas into product. The most prominent schemes are the BIS scheme, which is nothing but the Bio Incubator Support Schemes, the BioNest, several such programs are there. EUA is another very important program of the BIRAC. The Biotechnology Ignition Grant, the big scheme, and the SIBRI, nothing but Small Business Innovation Research Initiative, are one of the most important ones for validation of early stage ideas and promoting conversion of early stage ideas into proof of concepts and converting them into small businesses. So that's about DBT. The next one is DSIR, Department of Scientific and Industrial Research. It prioritizes industry-centric research and innovation. This is the body which manages funding to MSMEs, PRISM, and also to startup. PRISM is very important program which provides funding to individual innovators for creating early stage prototypes, technology transfer, and also for late stage scaling, innovation, and startup creation. Similarly, the TEPP, which is initially called as a technology-based innovation, TOCIC is a DSAR financed incubation center available for academic institutions as well. Similarly, the outreach cum cluster innovation centers implemented through the PRISM program, they are responsible for monitoring, evaluating, and also for coordination the grants of startups, providing mentoring to the DSIR as well. The Department of Electronics and Information Technology focuses mainly to build electronics and IT related industries with digital services. Here, The aim is to generate product-oriented growth and enhance startup linkages with markets. Next is MSME, Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. The main goal is generating self-employment, entrepreneurship, executing strategic plans for cluster development, and also for strengthening manufacturing competitiveness. The most important one of MSME is the collaboration of MSME with host institutes, which include technical institutions, engineering colleges, arts and science colleges, R&D institutions, etc., for designing incubator-like entities, which is called as the MSME Business Incubator or the Host Institution Business Incubator. This is for promoting and encouraging seeding of ideas from various sectors like surgical instruments, fruit processing, biotechnology, nanotechnology, IT, ITES, ceramics, etc., from idea to early stage and also to post product funding as well. This functions on a public-private partnership model, the PPP model, and they can expect partial sharing of funding to come from SMEs. Now, incubators. The objectives of incubators, supported by different government departments, they all converge on S&T-driven innovation, startup creation, linking innovation to the markets. And most of the incubators today are funded by the NSTEDB. They provide several facilities which I told you before, like finance, infrastructure, business capabilities, building business capabilities through mentoring and networking, technology infrastructure, laboratory facilities, hardwares, and also co-working spaces per se. Public funded, public funded incubators have certain characteristics. Most of them are not for profit entity, registered as a Section 25 company. They are set up with a host partner, which means in the vicinity you will have an academic partner. Incubators will facilitate financing for incubatees. They will receive 5 years of financial support from DST, after which they have to sustain their own business. And all incubators are eligible for tax incentives. That is, both incubators and incubatees with net profits lower than 50 lakhs, they are exempted from paying service tax. Similarly, when you see the incubator partner, these are some examples of incubators. The CIIE, Ahmedabad. The host partner is IIMA. We have one partner here, the Technology Business Incubator, Kongu Engineering College, Perundurai. The host partner is Kongu Engineering College. Similarly, we have Startup Village, Kochi. The MOBME is actually the host partner. IKP, incubator at IKP Knowledge Park, Hyderabad. The IKP Foundation is the host partner. We have Bangalore Biotech Cluster, CCAMP, Center for Cellular and Molecular Platforms, Bengaluru, with Bangalore Biotechnology Cluster. So if you see this picture, these red ones are all public government-funded agencies, NSTEDB, DSIR, DATE, DBT, and MSME. And when you see, they support a lot of incubators which are close and vicinity to an academic institution as well. Apart from public funded incubators, there are private incubators also. Several corporates, they use their corporate social responsibility funds or the CSR funds for supporting government initiatives as well as for supporting incubators. Intel business plan competition of Intel, workshops for strengthening supply chain by Boeing, power of ideas competition by Economic and Reliance and Economic Times, GE and Alstom's PPP model, entrepreneurial venture investment by companies like Reliance and Mahindra are classical examples of private incubators. We have a host of accelerators as well. Bengaluru, you have 500 startup accelerator, T-Lab startup accelerator of Bengaluru, Cisco Launchpad. Most of them work on prime areas of artificial intelligence, IT, ITES, biotechnology, nanotechnology, genomics, etc. I Create Startup Incubator of Ahmedabad, DevX Startup Accelerator, Indian Angel Network Startup Accelerator, Prime Venture Partners, CIEE IIM Ahmedabad, D Labs, and GSF Startup Accelerator. So these are some of the examples of how accelerators are providing a lot of impetus for promoting the growth and ecosystem in our country. Now, I would conclude by telling that India is now becoming a bit of a cynosure for the whole world, and we are breeding a lot of companies, and India is actually now the investment hub for several big players in the market from several countries in the Western world as well. So with this, I would conclude my talk telling that we have lot of scope in developing this innovation and ecosystem within our region through the Institution Innovation Council, and also networking ourselves with an incubator or an accelerator, and small local ideas can now grow into a potentially bigger company and contribute to the global, to the GDP of the country, and also to the dream of becoming a $5 trillion economy. Thank you so much for patient listening. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take. Madam, if there are anything to interact, we'll interact.
No, sir. No questions, sir. Thank you, sir. It's our graduate to thank our guest speaker today, Dr.S.R.Madhan Shankar, sir. Thank you, sir, for all your kind information, knowledge that you shared with us and spending your valuable time for us. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.